Is there another, is there a switch on the back for the on and off, or maybe the,
I was looking for a manual. There it goes.
Oh, there we go.
I just reset that over there. Maybe it was nothing more than that. Okay.
Probably so.
Hola.
Hi, Lila.
I don't know who you are. Okay.
Good morning. Are you on Zoom, Judy?
Not really.
Are you sitting
No,
here?
go ahead.
You're so good at yourself, buddy.
That wants to join the Monroe.
Good.
Ah, LinkedIn.
Right,
Yeah, so if any, just to let you know, if people would like to sit on the, cushion here, everybody's welcome in this space too. You can just grab a cushion and a table.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. We'll get started if you turn to page 1 in your prayer book. All mothers, sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. All sentient beings, limitless as the sky, take refuge in the glorious kind Lama Vajradhara, the embodiment of the body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, source of the 84,000 categories of the teaching and Lord of the Sanghas. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Edams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all Mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. refuge of all sentient beings without exception, divine subjugator of terrifying Maras, together with their host of demons, the one who understands all realities without exception exactly as they are, transcendent conqueror, together with your disciples, please come here to this place. The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the 4 continents, and the sun and moon. As a Buddha field I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fields. Whatever merit I've gathered through prostrations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. Okay, to page 11. Namo, to the Lama of utterly pure appearance and existence, I offer the fundamental ground of appearance and existence. I supplicate you to thoroughly liberate the 3 realms. Please grant your blessings and overturn the depths of samsara. Sublime Master, wish-fulfilling jewel, crown ornament, the inconceivable, inexpressible mind of the victorious ones, the one endowed with the 5 wisdoms of omniscience. Gracious one, the embodiment of love, precious protector of beings, I supplicate you from within the essence of mind. Please grant your blessings from within the innate nature. Please bless me that I may realize the Dharmakaya that is beyond intellect, this primordially unborn, completely pure mind. Transcending conqueror, the one thus gone, foe destroyer of afflictive emotions, completely perfected Buddha, endowed with logic and virtue, the one gone to bliss, knower of the world, captain, tamer of beings, the unexcelled teacher of gods and men. I respectfully prostrate, completely touching my head to the stainless feet of the unequaled Shakya king. At the time of your birth, leader of 2-legged beings, taking 7 steps on this great earth you proclaimed, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise even then, I prostrate. Possessing a body of complete purity, your sublime form is excellent. An ocean of primordial wisdom, you are like a golden mountain. the one whose renown is evident throughout the three worlds, protector of supreme attainment, to you I prostrate. To you who are endowed with the supreme marks, whose face is like an immaculate moon, to you, the one with a complexion like gold, I prostrate. A flawless one such as you among the three levels of existence is most exquisite. Unparalleled, omniscient one, to you I prostrate. Supreme among humans, captain of those to be tamed, the one gone who severs the all-binding fetters, who with senses pacified is utterly pacified and skilled in peace. To that one, the one who dwelled at Shravasti, I prostrate. Refuge endowed with great compassion, totally omniscient one who indicates the way, ground bases for oceans of merit and qualities, I prostrate to the one thus gone. The pure cause free from attachments, the virtue that liberates from the lower realms, the altogether supreme ultimate truth, to the pacifying Dharma I prostrate. Having been liberated, they also reveal the path to liberation. Thoroughly respectful of the three higher trainings, they are a field of sublime qualities. Through the Sangha I also prostrate. And back to page 9.
Namo Naze Namda Gelama Nase Shushe Sunchopamu Kamsoma Yondra De Sovande Korwa Tondo Se Jinjelo Jijen Urva Soke Jan Masan Jumi Javeto Jembe Yeshe Ngatan Jebe Kani Katichen
Drowa Gevre
Rinpoche Tasenye Jengane Sovande Chunye Jengande Jinjelo Asamdone Jime Namdade Nonde Chuka Lobara Jinjelo Ajam Dende Dijin Shekwa Jajamba Yandabara Zobe Sanje Releva Dan Shamsa Demba Dewa Shekwa Jiden Jemba Jiven Dewa Akaloy Jurwa Lana Meba Ladame Namje Bomba Nyame Ishai Jarboy Shavye Dema Mebala Angora De Dode Guve Chanda Loy Ganze Ganye Zobo Chodamze Mandela Gomba Lumorane Mane Jidan Danai Joje Song Adete Jeba Jila Chansalo Nanda Guna Jodo Suzanwa Ayeshe Janzo Serje Lumbondo Drapa Shiten Somna Langewa Agomboy Jonye Jela Chansalo Senjo Demba Dimien Areshe Nazardo Drapa Jela Chansalo Dude Jude Saba Somnaze Nyame Chen Chen Jela loi, me cho duwa ka loi kyun ze jen, kun jo loi kyun wai kyun ze de shin jen, wang boi je san ye 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 la ke, gen yo oi sho pa de lai chang sa lo, gong po tu je je dan ba, tam je je me dong ba bo, so na yun ten jiang zui yin, de xie ye lai chang sa lo, da bian lo cha je mi ju, ge wei ken song le dui yin, je ge dong bai jo jo bai, xie jo ju lai chang sa lo, chuo ne zhu wei lang yang dong, la ba da lai rab de gui, jing ge dang bai yang den jing, gen ge lang yang chang sa lo.
And to page 15. I prostrate to the youthful Manjusri, to those in the worlds of the 10 directions, however many there are, all the lions among humans who appear during the 3 times. To all of them, without exception, I pay homage with respectful body, speech, and mind. The force of my aspiration prayer for excellent conduct brings all the victorious ones directly to mind.
Bowing down with
Bodies as numerous as atoms in the realms, I prostrate to all the victorious ones. In a single atom there are Buddhas as numerous as atoms, each residing in the midst of their sons and daughters. Like that, I imagine the whole Dharmatatu completely filled with victorious ones. To those with oceans of inexhaustible, praiseworthy qualities, with sounds containing oceans of tones of melodic speech, I express the qualities of all the victorious ones.
I praise all the Sugatas with the finest flowers, the finest garlands, music, ointments, supreme parasols, supreme lamps, and the finest incense. I make offerings to the victorious ones.
With the finest cloth, supreme scents, and fine powders equal to Mount Meru, all displayed in supreme and magnificent ways, I make offerings to those victorious ones. With vast and unsurpassable offerings, I venerate all the victorious ones. Through the power of faith and excellent conduct, I prostrate and offer to the victorious ones. Whatever negative actions I have performed with body, speech, and also mind, overpowered by desire, aggression, and stupidity, I confess each and every one of them. I rejoice in everyone's merit, the victorious ones of the 10 directions, the Bodhisattvas, the Pratyeka Buddhas, those in training, those beyond training, and all beings. I request the protectors, the lamps of the worlds of the 10 directions, who, passing through the stages of awakening, attain Buddhahood beyond attachment, to turn the unsurpassable Dharma wheel. I supplicate with my palms joined together those who intend to demonstrate nirvana, to remain for kalpas as numerous as atoms in the realms, for the welfare and happiness of all beings. I dedicate whatever slight virtue is accumulated through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and supplicating to enlightenment. And page 16. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the 2 vehicles and their combination according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings.
do che jun tu mo de ba ye chu je ko lo ko lu su tam ge do je ja je re sun zhong shen je me do du je bong jong bo ser je leng bo da wo re ji bi ge xiao qi jie bei xiao la ke jia zi zhen mei wo zi le tou ji jing gu le de ma zhi xi jing wu wo jie da wo tam ji zi ba kun jian xu jie jie nian min zhi gong ren qian ge jia zi wu min xue jie ying jie po dang de de mu sang jie kun jing wu wen ni让咱们这个我上同这边，这为了没小了个家子，刚到这这东边就在那，这个龙马就我刚说的，天在东边就见家人别把，什么人都话他们见的也些，那么呀，他也给到了到那几个，中到到米给他们呢。罗根杰达给杰藏巴，他们杰给的大给出的。Good morning. 다 기타가 어떤 사회자니 당가 저 점도 다 가창다 망보 휴심바데 텐두다 테네 맞다 온도 3-year program 나라 흉겐데 라테네 점도 콜 가시지 휴야당 대가나 이양 고단다 서버한다 오이나 야 가시지 다 통다 니도 오지 되네 휴긴스
So in general, today we pick up again, continuing with the teachings on refuge, which we've already, you've already received a lot of teachings on. There's already been a lot of explanation, and this is particularly, connected with this, with the preliminaries, which are part of, the course of teaching for the 3-year program. And so today, Drupon Rinpoche says he will speak a little bit, kind of both in a way to continue for those of you who are doing the full 3-year program, and also, for those who are new here today, or who are, maybe, those who are new.
That in that's all Karsena. Bena to getting us already that 3-year program say that Karela Vina Jig Kolam Rimba Shindu Yandroya Ketini, that Jig Marsago Tenjo Nigawa La Sobinetini Yadanga to the Tandanga to left the water, Jamdo part left the Yores, Tendutini, Kojik, the Kansa Jigla, Tene San Diego na, Tene Jig. Sanji Senade da Terwa Liberation Kuyak Chi Dolada, Comini Meata, maybe Kojik Rimbashi, the Ajangwajik Chadi Ores.
So just to also give some context, so this 3-year program is a program in which students or those who participate are taken through kind of a step-by-step integration or introduction to the progressive stages of the path as they are commonly practiced in this tradition of Buddhism. So beginning with the uncommon or the common preliminaries, beginning with the teachings on precious human life. And then gradually, step by step, we have been going through, for instance, we already went through all 4 of the common preliminaries, and now we are on the first of the uncommon preliminaries, which are the teachings of refuge. So this whole curriculum, if you will, this whole all that is contained, in this presentation of the progressive stages of the path, really contain everything that any one individual would need to achieve liberation and awakening.
다 테레 다 단다다 노르드 휴너 whether 가서 마자바이나데 닝바이나데 수도 수임비나리 다 가서 냠렌체야 그 조우데 가르종요레 세나 드네 쿤데 군지 자와랑게 셈세 드네 셈리 힘비 추네 만치비 셈리 힘비 추네 만치비
Semle shimbe
추네 만치비 텔 셈 로스줄베게 다 추지 요 말이스 근데 섬동 냠려 코나 종조지 정도 셈 그통다더라
semdunda gare.
섬동 셈 그통다다 셈 섭주치야 셈 냠려 들치고레스
And so, this is relevant to both those who are, older or senior practitioners and also those who are new. So, as is said, the root of all samsara and nirvana is one's own mind. And there is no dharma or no phenomena that is something that is other than mind. And so, the practice of dharma is a practice of working with the mind, transforming the mind.
어다딜라 갈랍구요레 슈비나 다 남주인다고 가서 지 ordinarily 가르삼노 땅데 거레 슈비나 되네 다조지 랑기 셈게 지 간디 임바 텔라야 마타와 치네 다지 치유랑 유텔라데네 지 나토다 가서 expecting 와 유직을 때는 야보용야 대가 나지게 유텔랑가 좋다 지 수주치야 어다 텐데지 지네 텐데 가서다 대바토 그래 야보용 그래 삼베게다 포커스 노데 대책이 요레스 이나야 다디 카르세나 가서다 넘바 산지 비 추디 텐데 마임바 조랑게 셈 그러와 랑게 셈들라 수주치네 랑게 셈들라 지 페나차샤비나 셈라 까니요나 까닌 중시 유들라 당보섬노 마탕어 치네 까닌 중시 기셈 랑게 넘버 또 가래 페나 넘버 또 화디 페나 셈텐도 랑게 요나리 야마나 마가완도지 융게 요나리 티 당보 priority 같이 거스나 랑게 셈디 nga라타나디 셈테지도 다 매바 칸디 소고도 랑초 카나도로 대가 나이게다 지 가르세를 해당라서 봤다 뇽무바이나리 간다 지 가르세 uncomfortable 그 situation 칸디지 유비이나야 되네 텔라 되네 솔메네 다 가서 소주치 고요레스 instead of 다 지유를 픽싱케 마이바
So what this means is that, ordinarily, when we don't investigate, when we don't really examine deeply, then the kind of natural way that the mind operates is that it is always looking outside. So we are always looking outside at outer objects, and we're hoping for happiness, and we're thinking, if I can just get this thing to go the way that I want it to, if I can make everything line up in such a way that it is, just right, then I will be happy. And so we're putting, and the same goes for our, for unhappiness, suffering, difficulty. It's always attributed to outer circumstances, outer reasons, and we take those reasons to be very real. And so from the Buddhists, and we have a lot of expectation and hope regarding like external things, or outer objects. And then if we have difficulty, if there is, if there's difficulty, we don't tend to look at the state of the mind itself. We tend to blame that difficulty on the outer circumstances. But so in the Buddhist way, it's the opposite. The mind is turned inward to look at itself. So then when we are anxious or worried, when there's someone or something we don't like, then we first understand what is happening in the mind, and then we see that the cause of our discomfort, our unhappiness, is coming from the thoughts that are in the mind. And so then we work with the mind to transform our perception. So it is understood that our state of well-being, and essentially everything that we experience, comes from and depends upon our own mind.
어때디 인도 당가서디 particular 카르데글로나 단대 투초들라 다 가서 유일점노 다나 다 말이 단대 투초들라 서와 단대 투초들라 같이 거스나 다 가서 곰자기 요나데 템바단 희기 지나리 빼마세위 게더니 내가 첨부직당 가서 민의 메타 매원로 오지 차디거레스 티엔디다 계생가서 단다 유일 치료 따비나 다지 몸에게 다 갈세 그래 베나로 장원도 오당 다 롱업 주축중원도 오당 단단히 보도르비나 되네 베다 코란 주로 침부시지 탭되어레스 다 몸만도 인비나 지 몸만도 이나다 베나 텐디르와 다 갈세 그래 무창지 니로지 대기로와 무창니도 다 벤 10 패밀리도 20 패밀리도 텐디제 요레스로와
Pena Jongsabna
Jongsabna.
Dene Mitsangchik ni.
야다테 무창지 니 세나리다 10 패밀리 람나 지거라 텐디라 가리 요레라비나 다지 콘소 디스 프로블럼 요레스로와 이나 텐디 그 프로블럼 쳔뭐 요 말레스 통구요 말이스. 그건 점블랭이랑 프로블럼 카리나 통구요 말이스. 와. 이내야 다 단다디 그 프로블럼 코나 빼치는 거리스. 드디어 프로블럼로 오이나 가르스나 디스 마가와도 오자 두번도 오시 효르지 모종도 오세그로. 텐디 쉬야 그 강을 요리스. 와.
이거 테스트 거마서.
이나 티가라 프로블럼 요나. 그래서 파이팅 치기 요나. 이나테네 직 도원다오다. 텐디 마토 히라 요마르와. 이나다 단데니 티가라 프로블럼 자체모 통고 말했어와. 이나 단데네 감도 오서노다나다. 잠블랭 프로블럼 가리우나 가서 하고 요레스. 제네 니네 카르세나 프로블럼 항상 전부 요레스. 와. 잠블랭 코나 베데 디스트로이 치야케 미파 요와다. 지토비 아케다. 텐디 요레스. 텐디제 게 네캅라 다가 속게 샘그 돌라 디스직 시데데 쭌지 베나 곰자야다 텐디지 샘그 통라 냠냐 치네 텐디 샘바로론도 마지비나 다가 속 텐디 프로블럼 좀다 텐디 가솔라 베메시 디스트레스 포 베 칼리고레 샘제다 칼리 용그레 스테니다 디가올라 단데 두졸라 텐디 쭌냐냐 치야다 케치 모이사레 잠그도스
And so in particular, if we think about, all of the objects out there, and especially during these times, these sort of current modern times, It's especially, like now is the time when it is especially important to work with the mind, to practice meditation, to actively cultivate mindfulness and awareness. And if we don't, it's sort of detrimental to our health, like mental health and well-being, because of the times that we're living in. So if you think about, like in the past, for instance, in olden times, or in the olden days, when things were very, very different, and you would maybe, like say 500, 600 years ago, things have changed dramatically since then. It used to be that communities were, they were relatively very small. There were maybe, villages with, maybe 10 families or so, and some that were more. But if there was a problem, then the problems kind of couldn't get that big. They were contained relative to, what we see in these modern times. And also the people who lived during that time didn't have a way to know what was going on in the rest of the world. So, whatever problems there were, in other places, then the people in, this particular village would have no idea about them. And so there were maybe problems that would break out, in the community or between families or within the family. But even if the problem got really, really big, they really were, they could resort to throwing rocks at each other and fighting one another, with their bare hands. But there was also a limit to kind of what extent that the harm, that comes from fighting or problems could create, which is really different, from the times that we're living in now. Everybody has awareness of all of the problems, or has the capacity, that not everyone has the awareness, but everybody has the capacity to know what is happening in the entire world, and to know about all of the problems. And not only that, but the methods, there's capability right now to destroy the entire earth, with the power of the weapons that currently exist. So this creates a lot of stress on every individual, and also, just knowing the constant stimulation of information overload, for instance, and the pace of our everyday lives is very fast and very demanding. And so in these modern times, if we don't meditate, then we're much more prone to being, having issues with anxiety, and becoming very distressed or depressed.
어때 뒤인도 따틀에 대체쇼한테 갈 때는 단기 공시와 나지는 가서 섬동 냠냐 코나 쫑저제 손도 스무샘게 동기 냠냐한테 가르치고리 휴이나 다 배나 이 개체쇼지 테레샤 되네 지 갈세고래 가서 다 단다디 가서 레퓨지 페어 나나 요바 심chen tamchi dewa tang dewi ju tang denbar chorje dongar da dongar ki ju tang thebar chorje soya ki ta tsek de zo la tene nga zo nyamnya chi ko ke chimbore yas ti indu tene ta nga zo je tang nang ba sangji be ngo ne simchen tamchi de ji no wa re to re ti na yang ta ji tanda kap sa ba la kona ji ro wa mu ta tamchi la dewa tang dance 동안다 태송벌 점생 가리서는 로마 수단 수인비나야 그 대완도 댕해지 동안 문동케 임바치 오다 텐디지 켈로라 샤네 로녜 드링게 베나차샤나 차자 칸디지 지구 요비나와 랑옌 심jen소 나양게 대외치도 현게 대외치도 텐디지게 가서다 로라 베 디벨롭 양고야데 마시비 케침보레 야스 대 가레스 휴비나 되게 랑라 펜바다 현라 펜바 요레스 다 테마인 비지 다 단다게 지 가르세 그래 가서 지텐디 기나나 다지 problem 와 틴리 삼노 땅에 테네 지금 랑게 셈도 수주 마지비나 다 단다가서 통신발이 와 가리오레 라비나 테네 지다 콩로 사니 베 틴리지 기테네 양라 셈제다 콩도다 틴리 요드 다 가르치기 열세나 돈다 매야 못서다 맴다자 세기 걸와 티 좀생 가리세나 다지 당복거나 셈기 땡레베 갈세 거래 다지 해당 랑네 베 테니 갈레고 멋지 간을 해당 랑게 요나 티게 된다 나도 넘버 상집에서 셈도 수초 맞이나 당복거나 해당 랑서 멋지 간을 랑바래 라와
Wait, Garela?
그 당보 해당지 랑요나 뺀다고 자셔도 멋지 간을 해당 랑바라와 테니 해당 장장 삼노 거디도 셈도 수초 맞이나 테니 뭐 참에 간을 해당 랑거고 다 테니 지지 단다 공가서 못해서 세기도 단다요 뭐다 원에 로이나 뭐만 로이나 추바지야 세나 테니 빼내주 첨부지 요래 라와 야나 빼샤 토라 니주 요래 야만나 고마지야 비르지레 다지 텐데지는 야나 다 추바지
Pecha Yangna.
오 빼샤 그ton다 요래 다 번jo 그ton다 요래 사지 ton다 니주 첨부지 지나 테니 추바지야 그러와 다 고토바지나 상다 세세 그러와 아니 단단한 노 리즌으로 왕가 힘면다 통다 가면 잡이거라. 이는 다 파이 강사 티기 주텔라 가서는 다그 샘들 섭주 강 지요 말와.
So, when in very important in our practice is, and also in particular related to this practice of refuge, which we are practicing in the 3-year program, is the cultivation of intentional motivation. So when we, and likewise, even when we just recite, for instance, the opening prayers, we recite the prayers of refuge, and most importantly, also the 4 immeasurables, the prayer of the 4 immeasurables, where we say, may all sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So it's so important to continuously be very intentional in directing our mind when we recite that prayer in particular to a concern for the welfare and benefit of all beings. And that includes ourself. It's ourself and all beings. So just like we wish to have happiness and well-being and we don't want to suffer, every single sentient being is the same in this desire. And so in our intention, or in our mind state that wishes for all beings to have happiness, it has the effect of cultivating an inner sense of peace and well-being that also achieves one's own happiness. So this is something that requires intention. We have to develop it. We have to actively develop it so that, for our own benefit and for the sake and well-being or the benefit of others. So in the world, the problems that arise become so, if they're dangerous, there's more danger to not working with one's mind in these modern times, because if one doesn't identify the issues that are there and try to change them or try to transform the mind inwardly, then it is in these modern times we see everywhere how things can get out of control very quickly. So for instance, there are people who kill people for no reason really. the reason why this happens, the reason why they do that is because they get angry. They get angry, or maybe they have extreme anxiety. There's any sort of number of different sort of expressions of affliction that can lead to that kind of thing. But most often it's anger. And, it usually starts because of a particular thing. They are like angry at one person, or there's something that made them angry. But when the anger goes unchecked, in the same way that we can have spread our love and affection that we feel for someone to like all sentient beings, anger can also grow if you don't check your anger and work with your anger. If you have anger towards one person, that can also quickly kind of spread to many people. And then you have this situation where someone, for instance, there's a mass shooting because somebody had anger, and then that anger suddenly becomes an intense anger towards humanity. And there's violence, feelings of violence towards people in general. This is senseless. There's no reason there. And this is again goes back to this difference in the times that we're currently living, because in the past, people fought, of course, people killed each other, but usually it was for some particular reason. For instance, they were fighting over money, or they were fighting over, possessions or land, or, some specific thing, that got out of control and was limited to the scope of like between these two people. But now, or groups of people. But now, as the afflictions are much more volatile, and the potential for them to get out of control is a lot greater.
오테레다 딘두 제가 나이다 가서 네 수직 드린 게래 삼고도 갈세나 다 제단고 지 로와미나레 심지아이나레 고 갈세고 타나야 조마이나레 고 고랑고랑지 갈세 그룹 로지 딘딘 로지
Drama?
ends
Okay, that's what I thought. But then,
조마 make it 조마
yeah.
이내야 다 드솔라 고 갈세나 고랑솔라 딘디게 지 요비까블라 고야로지 레스 디인드 이내야 다 가조디 고 갈세고레 고 develop 야보차 다 녀만도이나 고 베나 family 도지 힘비나야 고 family 틀라 고 갈세고레 티 트레레도와 베나 베샤도이나 고 family 무주요나 디 베샤도지 마토 고 머리리 베샤스 요마와 이내야 고디 다디 I know necessarily think good, but 이내양 거디 family 때 거다베 갈세 거를 강타 코너 찍도 차노 그랬어. 그러와. 제가 나이게 델리파 furthermore 통바 침세 neighborhood 제제라로 같이 텐데지네 다 개찰라 삼삼다베 not all 베 삼삼다 두고 야스기로와. 이내양 강타 콘소베 커넥션 첨부지 요레스. 대요도 갈세나다고 디 커넥션 유비 티기 베니핏 카르차고 얼세나드네 지 갈세고레 셈게고 지 갈세고 나로레 셈데야게 콘트라보데 차기고 말이스로
Nanglo gisem gare.
베나 콘로로지 라데기로와 콘로로지 라데야게 되니 코니 투요마다 제지네 콘로지 라세기리 칠로르메지라와 이내야 다 단단가서 develop 체소나 되는 가서다 초지들이 가서다 메시지를 뜬고 말해라고와 ongaran dikido ta consultewa jagumendo sambekita tindike samno taji tene ti samno tambate garan ko tobaji yorwa ta rewa dang tobani chene tene tinde jeje ta tanayang tene 직 갈세 거래 나사상 relation 부빈자 드소인비나 tene 제 on roji tene ko디 scope Pinjari, yin yang family in the same time, called separation, chadik dua. That Kanda yang Tindu Tangazo, Tanda need to march lonely say, or take page young years at a some good. Tindu Tangazo, number Sanji be some gentam, that case reaction bed, the some gentam, she took me a low tall, and some gentam, Pemba Chigo, also they were go with the door. Tinijin the reason Yorwa. Tilo Tiona, Tene, Kissy Nimata Harrican Magic Yam Rogi maybe in a young. Kasana rang ko loneliness the chagyo mares. Konga responsibility or some gentamji la ropa chigyo. That thing furthermore than the lende yorwa, lende some not ane. Tene koji sem kiteng tsurbadi, koji kasa trovatan, devan roji lep de yosares.
Semgi ting la.
Sem kiteng la. Tene tadon ko accept the control to the yomara ko trova.
Control
Yomare, tene trova the oji down. This floor on the one of
So sentient beings, whatever species that they are, they tend to congregate in groups. And they have to rely on one another, you know, even if we look at other creatures like ants, for instance. And human behavior is very much the same. Humans need one another. And so, you know, it used to be the case, for instance, that there was more unification among groups of people, you know, whether in the family, whether in the neighborhood or village. So you know, there was like one family and they, for instance, like the whole family kind of, you know, all of their wealth and all of their resources were collective resources and wealth, like that the whole family had, for instance. Or even, you know, for instance, in the neighborhood, there is more connection. People talk to each other regularly. They help one another if they need it. And of course, also there are issues, there are disputes, there's fighting, but there's more connection overall, which there is benefit to. There's benefit in being in having connection. You know, even that includes like all the different types of connection, you know, even though there might be, you know, problems or disputes that develop, there's also, you know, the feeling of, you know, connection to other humans or other beings, and a feeling of, you know, intentions to help one another and everything. And so this is very important. These days, we, you know, even in the family unit, there's more and more separation. So everybody is kind of on their own. Even though they live together, there's more independence. Like we don't need to rely so much on one another. You know, each person sort of takes care of themselves, and there's, you know, less dependence within the family. And there are benefits to that. There's definitely some benefits to that, but there's also at the same time, this creates a feeling of separateness, and because of this, there's a lot of loneliness. People feel very lonely. So when we, as Buddhist practitioners, develop love and compassion for beings, even if we're not able to really benefit beings, if we're not capable maybe to really bring about their benefit, just in our hearts, by cultivating the intention, the wish for all beings to be happy, this is like directly becomes an antidote to that feeling of loneliness. Because there is connection just in the intention in the heart. So even if there isn't actual connection there, which is perhaps why, you know, people can stay in retreat in solitude and feel absolutely not lonely, but what it is that is causing the loneliness is this lack of connection in the heart. So this is another reason why it's so important to generate that the four immeasurables and the wish, for the beneficial intention, the altruistic intent for all beings. And furthermore, it also gives more understanding of karmic interdependence. And so with that, the qualities of the four immeasurable in our heart and our mind, then there is much less potential, or the potential for anger, for instance, is greatly decreased. And the result of having in our heart and mind these intentions is a sense of happiness and delight.
어디 개체물이도 스티니다 텐디지게 지고야데 갈세난 가서다 단다데 심chen 탐지 세야지도와 텐디티네 다 심chen 탐지 세야데 고내가 전부 휴지 차디요리로와 가르라고 요래 라데 가서다 지 갈세 내추럴리 la kari yorse na nga so chamba yore nyingye yore yina yang tata nyam dola nga so karse na ta ji chagdang ta division ji rangi klep ngorwa kari yongu yore la bina ta tanda yongdo yonghin bare nga so 통구 yorwa karse na tine ko ji jekab la division do rwa tine mreg latine mreg division doji oda tso ndo ina nga to samno tana tangi kont hibana yire jingone semjen kons khande je yonare ko mo poinare moinare mo khande yona ko dewan donggen re sambata dongi mendo ke jingsong ba nga jingsong ba tani je samno matana tine ko nga so tana ta ko mreg khare ko karore ko nakore ta tande jen tine ko pe ta division mamboji chando ku yore sko te lengka yorong ka samzamba ning leng manda yore tanda jikap jada to kasino chi yore ta to chi tene chana tindi indu nga zo jik semchen tamji seya da sangji de ko samji me chabari do sangji seya de korang ke ji nyamnyo tene nga semchen tamji sungde tene tele
But one really important aspect of this practice of cultivating loving intention, affection, and kindness towards others is that it is also cultivated together with an active intention to make it totally impartial. Because naturally we do have love, we do have compassion, we do have affection towards others. This is like a natural quality of the heart. But together with this, there's partiality. So it's something that we consider to be a good quality directed towards some people, or some, beings, and then it is, it's also excluded, from others, or we exclude others from that emotion, because there is this natural inclination of attachment and aversion in the mind. That's part of the nature of having obscurations. There's division. So there's a lot of, the mind is always creating divisions. So, we see this on a large scale, groups of individuals. There's division between countries, between different countries, there's feelings of division. There's divisions, senses of division among genders, division among races. And so we have to overcome this mindset of division, together with that active intention of really cultivating, or that active practice of cultivating the intention of love and compassion, we have to really make an effort to overcome those tendencies of exclusion and judgment and division. Oh, this person's white, this person's black, this person's, from this, sector of society, this is from this other sector of society. And so there's all, or right now especially, we're in a time where there's so much connection. People from countries all over the world are, in the one sense, there's division, but in the other sense, there's connection, because there's so many people from all different countries, all different cultures, together, in one place. And so we have to make sure that our love and compassion is really indiscriminate, that it really is directed towards everyone. The Buddha is like an extraordinary example of this. He really exemplifies complete non-partiality, and it's amazing because he lived, so long ago, and yet there was such a progressive kind of all-embracing attitude that the Buddha had with regarding everyone of all castes, all races, all genders equally.
어때디누 베나차샤비나다 tezungudwa konso sanji most emphasis karigola tene ta tigala sanji gala konso ta reg be cheba yore tiga na yita regla ramna doa ko reg cheba yore tene kone ki cheba bendoa be jarbu kreg ro jarek jare tene lombon rawo ta tende ko ta tanda ro chupon ro re chupu kreg ta khanda konso tene reg kona be hyu yorwa inda dukho to zola ta ji tanda jikware ku jumenyan zola tene ko dogan ro ji zedek doa indi tigal ta sanji jumden di tewa tanda di tuzon tene kong ke samre tene ko khale khoye la khandogu yo la na tene ta hi se ya jor ta o ti zala te ko be jor wa ko bangore tene ko ka tene ko ta pachu ji ma to yo ma ro pa tene do tene ko pachu ko na ni zemo te pachu nyam dum do tene chi yo des.
So the Buddha really emphasized, so at a time, when he lived in ancient India, the caste system was very deeply entrenched in society, and there was no crossover between the castes, and it was very rigid, and that there were the higher castes and the lower castes, those the sort of castes of kings and so forth, the Brahmin castes, and then there were the lower castes, and this was of course all connected with also kind of socioeconomic position, like wealth and the lack thereof in society, and a lot of discrimination that no one questioned at the time. It was just the way it was. But the Buddha came along and overturned all of those concepts of division and said there's no difference. Everyone is equal. And you should regard everyone equally. Everyone has the potential for awakening, and everyone should be regarded with equal, affection, care, and respect. And he, also demonstrated this from an early age with his best friend, who was the Buddha was a prince, and his best friend by the name of Tashi in Tibetan was a boy from a lower caste who herded cattle, and they were
Maybe this not many cows, maybe one cow or two cows.
Oh, actually, it was just like he had a cow.
Because Paul.
or two cows. And so the two of them were inseparable. They were very close, and he loved his friend very deeply.
He ta konso amada to da yarwo to te chu kawan ro re slab go yorwa. Nga tenin do yin la te konso hansa kondo sabi yore chu ta ko kars break the law. Chigi do lab te ko club do keba mendos ti ko kares rwa. Nga la dewan do china so nga la respect ka pe han 항상 대오당 지오당 용바 섬 당겨레스 이나 공이 초콜라자 자성 때히고 same feeling is 오늘 지나 처럼 속에 나 나가 힘받네 배 지보당 대오 용야 치들다 자성 때히로 로바치나 근데 지고고레스다 알라부도
So he would go off for hours with his friend, and then when he would return, his mother and father, the king would scold him and say, or they'd say first, "Where have you been?" And he would say that he had been with his friend Tashi, and they would get very angry and say, "This is like you are breaking the law." This is how deep it was. It was considered to be like a law, the separation between the castes. And they would get very upset and angry, and he would respond saying, why should there be any difference? You know, just as you have respect and want the best for me and want me to be happy and well, this boy from this other family has the same feelings and wish for, you know, happiness and well-being as I do. So why should there be any difference between us? Why should we be
me and Tahi
between myself and Tashi, why should there be any, why should we be prohibited from enjoying one another's company? We're the same, there's no difference.
오다 티인도 당가서 레라워다 요마르와 임비나야 당가서 텐디제게고 샘케 땡네 대치지 톱고고요나 대치 만중야게 짜와디 갈라비나 단다디 에다 다 공탄기 공티와나 예다디고 샘리 라요르와 티인도 다 고마렉 바 유텔레테네 고 차단이레테네 가서 대시지 종투고 요마다 고 짜와 테레다디.
But from a very practical level, also, when it comes to our own happiness and well-being in our own heart and mind, the truth of the matter is that all of our suffering comes from unawareness. It comes from the root of ignorance. And from ignorance, there is the mind of attachment and aversion. And as long as we have the struggle of attachment and aversion in our mind, we are unhappy. So this division, this mind of judgment, this mind of accepting and rejecting actually creates our own suffering.
어디인도 다 텔라 갈세는 가서 다 디기 독초 대리 가래라 위는다 개체효대 잠반 인지 손에 개시 강사 제기 주라 되네 잠바지 요비나 되네 고착당 세야케고 다 브레이크 로 차노 요리스 고 갈세고데 펜스 로 위나리 다 양나가 좀 쿠르웨이크 다 네트 럭도 쿠르웨이크 야나래 되네 고 챙대와데 다 고 토투고 요리스
Wait, korweja nanga.
배는가 좀 거기 동네 여러 차당 자나라 추디요나 야나 차당게다 그 프레젠트로 티나 추디요나 라와 오다디 수익 투구요래라 나라와 데 잠바단 인지게다 예 투구요래스
So the opposite of that mind of partiality, attachment, and aversion is loving compassion, because it really it melts the barriers that we have, and this is why it's so important to train and actively developing them, because it breaks the chain of attachment and aversion. It breaks. It's sort of like, you know, creating a break in a fence, or, for instance, like the web of samsara. We're caught in the web of samsara, but which is like a prison. But when we have love, loving kindness, and compassion, this like breaks the threads of the web. It kind of causes the whole web of suffering to unravel.
어다 대가나 이 디토라 근데 다 좋은 것도 다 양고요다 배나 레전드 백해천보래 다 레전드데 대중도와 저지 똑반 통보랩 되는 tene lende te samu tango ta lende tang ta chamba ning je dewa ko chi kwa wa dewa cha di yore ten de tene
Jamdang Ningji.
da te lende ra wa tene lende te so nga so ya jang go yore es ten de tene te zong le tene tokwa nam ka we jang to le jun de hwa che we jang he tokwa nam kan thombo yo na ben na cha je chen bu ko tokwa ra wo ji je yu bi yin na ya ta dong lende de che go re zong da
But we have to train. We have to train. It doesn't just come naturally. It has to be developed intentionally. And just very much, a part of this is as we cultivate those qualities of the four immeasurables, then interdependence and understanding of karmic interdependence also arises as a result. And it is so important that there is very strong attention to karma, cause, and effect, karmic interdependence, no matter how high one's level of practice might become. And in fact, the higher that the level of practice becomes, the stronger the sense of caution in terms of, karma, cause, and effect should become. So as is said, even if one's realization is as high as the sky, one's attention to conduct, or caution and conduct and attention to karma, cause, and effect should be as fine as powder, like as refined as powder. And so,
that is the Chemboreda. Tene, Temaimba Natota, Jichutam Jitombani re no labina, go re chutam jiketa, the automele Tombani re, the yin and yang, co Carsena, Tony Junis Dambazundoa, Joan Jikan something over some Jimichabare. Tombani re, we Tombani Chotamji Takpatan, Dembato de Vaji, Mevadi, Hakona, Ti Tola, Jundete, Hebtragic, Hakobre, only. Tatemato beke, Tajik Dombaniri, ni Dombaniri, Dombaniri, Dombanina. Tene, Gil Napo Kanjam, Gevala drop Mahiwa. Tene, Chik Dombanina, Gewakaji to go, Roya. Tene Nasota, Pemesiviki, Napo Kanjam only, or that Jik Dombari Lanta, or that Domba inside that, Gevadona Japan or somebody. Go Megeva in that, Teneja, they could pawn a pen or somebody, some grower. What a tea do. Kei Chesho data, Joan Jikan Sum Jim Gomboti, Pemesivic, Zachimor in the war. Carson Joan Jikan Sum the Sombody. Carson Joan Jikan Sum Gong, Kes some on the Tambina. Kanda Munum Mudu Devati, Kei Chambore Sungdoa. Jubadi Orwa. Munum Mudu Devati. Munum Mudu Devaji Carson, Dorjan Chani, Benata, and the Joan Jikan Sum Lamari, Kanda. Telako mene muju ne ta tamga nyamle lame lamachi lomachi ne jude jojirwa otati samji meshaware ezone jetan yores ngazu sachu la sobata namchu la sobata termando mambo yores yina ya tinan spring karelana Tope ju machiba, Chenabji ju machiba, Nyamnon ju machiba, Kumen Muju de Jotala, Tel Hagre, Sumba, Joan Jikan Sungung, Setro Jitan, Hansan Arawata, Denda Kan Yomari, Benatendoa, Sejana Yoreta, Betendoa, Jamdon Rochina, China Cheber Jamdonji, love the Pellela Udoa, Roa, Dotanga Cheba Wani Laudoa. Pelela or the taking Narawa. Tene and Dotong Archivo winded. Tigua Chijung Cheper, Semji in Labudoa. The Matonga Totako, Pavila, Sayuno, the Consul Henayana, the Consul Mariana, the Consul Vaje, and Tene, yet a high Yomaris. Depending Consul Sule Unatene, the Semji Yawoyana, Tigua Chembore, Semji Junjo Ranji Buzamba, Tigua Chumres on it. What that so no some Jimmy Tomato Tangas a division so good. Tangas this on Sit Tombu get and love or lost on something.
But Jitin Sungan Yang than a legend dragi korla chek sunga yaba che sungye gare.
Tony Donas. Tony Donas. Junini Stangres, Junini Potini Hans Saya Kitchen with cigarettes, Tangiwada, Tofanamka Vejan, or let Junde Fachi Vejan Hebzungdoa, or Tendo Chikwada, Tony Donna, Junini Stans on Doa. Tatamato Tombani also that on body love not any, that be missing a Katawara.
So also, really an important point in the context of Buddhist practice is that this connection between emptiness and the understanding of karmic interdependence, that these really actually come together. And this is emphasized by Lord Jigten Sumgön. So Jigten Sumgön is really extraordinary in his, as we become more familiar with his works and teachings, it's really, there's everything he says, it's so poignant, so profound, really. So for instance, in the Gongchik, he says, and so simple and yet so profound. So for instance, he says, in realizing emptiness, then kind of paraphrasing, karmic interdependence or karma cause and effect becomes like deeply kind of cherished and understood, that one pays really close attention to karmic interdependence. This is the result of realizing emptiness. But without that, if it is not really a genuine understanding, it can, the idea of emptiness can create like the opposite, actually. So, for instance, if one is saying, oh, it's all this, it's emptiness, everything is empty. If that becomes kind of one's attitude, it then becomes like a way to dismiss things, just to kind of dismiss everything, to kind of say, oh, it doesn't really matter, like it's empty. So then there's kind of an avoidance of doing the work that needs to be done on the level of karma cause and effect, if one just sort of dismisses phenomena as emptiness. And then it can go even deeper into a territory of danger when then there's even the thought of, well, it doesn't really matter what I do because everything is empty. Well, if I practice virtue, there's not really any real benefit because there's no real, nothing really exists. If I practice, if I do something negative, there's no harm because nothing really exists. And so there's this term in Tibetan for this, which is really hard to translate, but it's like really dark language, maybe you would say. So it's like, it's really misunderstood. That's like an indication of a really deep misunderstanding of the Dharma. It's Nakpo Kajam, which is like,
maybe I don't know.
Dark talk.
Black check down black ni talk sona. Ko duga jig mato be ko jig da ko ti ta yangar ro yo mare sona ta penaga be nakpo jig da yang karbo je yo na ko karbo tik tis jig ko nakpo ta jig ta antidote son ro ro.
Oh, okay. So the term means something. Nakpo Kajam is what it is. Is it Kajam is kissing?
No.
Oh, okay.
Or continuation, I don't know.
The Kajam, like Tukni.
Oh, that thing, no.
It's kind of like, it's literally like black on black, meaning that that's the term, meaning that you don't have, there's no way out of it. There's no antidote. It's like unwholesome and like unwholesome meeting with the unwholesome. There's no wholesome to counteract the unwholesome is sort of the meaning of it. He just explained. So Lord Jigten Sumgön is so extraordinary. You know, he also emphasizes how important, how precious a living lineage is. You know, that the like from, you know, like person to person, sort of a transmission happening in this way through a living lineage. So when we think about, for instance, these lineages, you know, where the Dharma has been passed, you know, from generation to generation, since the time of Vajradhara, like the instructions, the practice, you know, the transmissions and teachings and empowerments, you know, from teacher to and realization, from teacher to student. This is really, Lord Jigten Sumgam emphasizes how extraordinary and how precious and profound this is, you know, as opposed to, you know, for instance, there are other forms of Dharma appearing in the world, like for instance through the treasure traditions, where, you know, from the earth, you know, it's extracted from the earth, it's extracted from the sky, you know, these precious instructions or teachings, the Terma traditions, if you will. But Lord Jigten Sumgön, it kind of makes the point of saying that these instructions, you know, or what it is, that which is passed down from a living lineage, you know, is endowed with so much blessing because of the power of that lineage. You know, the transmission that occurs, you know, in it being passed, you know, from a living human being to another living human being, and that being maintained in an unbroken continuity, you know, over the course of many centuries. And so Jigten Sumgön also says, for instance, in the Gongchek, these statements that sound so simple, like the difference between Buddhist and non-Buddhist is refuge, or the difference between Sutra and Tantra is empowerment, or the difference between the greater and the lesser vehicle is bodhicitta. But it's really so deep when you look into, you know, the meaning there. So, you know, for instance, ordinarily we can kind of pontificate about all of these different things that qualify, like, you know, the like Hinayana or Mahayana or Vajrayana, and sort of decide that these are really distinctly different from one another. But Jigten Sumgön cuts through all of it and says,
ordinarily thinking, oh, maybe come from like locations or somewhere.
We might we might say, oh, this this is historically where this set of teaching comes from, and this is historically where this
side Mahayana, this is Vajrayana, that ordinarily love gravanga.
So ordinarily, that's how people might talk about, you know, the difference between the vehicles. But Lord Jigten Sumgön cuts through all of that and says the difference, you know, what qualifies, like, you know, someone who, like what makes something Hinayana as opposed to Mahayana is the presence or absence of bodhicitta in the practitioner, meaning that somebody who is practicing Vajrayana, if they don't have genuine bodhicitta, then they're Hinayana level person, or somebody who may, you know, practices Hinayana, if they have a really pure heart of bodhicitta, if they have the qualities of bodhicitta, then that makes them a Mahayana practitioner. So that is the determining factor. It isn't actually anything other than that. And so it's really, you know, the teachings of Lord Jigten Sumgön are so profound.
That theory tana confuse na yeta nga so person ju de jote ka ju ro ka ju de ta ka ju ke na ne kharcha ge yore shubi na tene ta Jigten Sumgön ne ju de wa de ko ta ngone china ko ngona ta nga so cheta ka ju se ya de ju ro ta go zo ne ha ko re mala de pa ne ma ju we chama de ne ju ka na ro yore Ki nane Jigten Sumgön ke kabla tene ta kaju ke nane tene chi to power de tere do bena jowan Jigten Sumgön ga kari yorsena losom chosom seyaji beda cheje tene ko lo jungni ke re ke nala Tene kachu tigma somnang gdwa ko lo hire je la kachu na tene tela yang kachu na kachu tho pa te ka la yang lo som chu som hyo yang lo hi je la yang lo som chu som te sarwa thu gdwa ama ning ba thu gdwa yang sarwa chi wa da tende che ya da tega na yin jik tan song gong tu la khare yor se na yu chu gun chu sung de tene pa na ir kan da kachu na gong ka te nyam len chi wa da tende do wa te yin jik tan song khar song yor la na tene 다 니에게 추 랍샤죠 이 샤죠 안도솔라 갈세나 다 제비 그 공파당 틈바당 대가 나기 랑게 되네 냠스 뇨마 니에게 랍샤죠데 니 냠내 지네 냠스 뇨데 잠마다 대가 책로 오지 도나 가야송 메스 냠스만요 찡잠이 정도와
So Milarepa Korla Kadasam?
omlare pandawta chetanga su du kaju pala du ju res
Oh yeah.
teri khande sana mlare pane mata samate duba jangala yongro ti nane particular
What?
jikan song
Okay. So this lineage, which is like a person to person, it's passed, from person to person. Like our lineage, that it comes from Lord Jigten, where Jigten Sumgön as the kind of father of the lineage, is the practice lineage of, it is the whole Kagyu lineage, in fact, is referred to as the practice lineage. And largely, this, for instance, the epitome of this is the example of Milarepa. Milarepa, who is held as like an example of one who is just exalted, as an extraordinary example of true practice. And within this lineage,
that from the Milarepa to all the graduate samade
so this tradition of practice that also, that was exemplified by the yogi Milarepa is passed, from that time, through this stream of lineage transmission from person to person, since the time of Milarepa to the present, and actually throughout all of the streams of Kagyu lineages. And Lord Jigten Sumgön further, it was specifically that, from him there developed, this tradition of the 3-year retreat. So this was also connected with the 12 sort of these cycles of, there's the cycle of 12 zodiac signs in Tibetan, in the Tibetan calendar and Tibetan astrology. And within that cycle of 12, there were 3 great teachings that were held. So like every 4 years, there would be, a great teaching. And then following that great teaching, a group of people would go into retreat, the 3-year, 45-day retreat. And then they, this was something that kind of the pattern of what was practiced at the time, and also, has continued, throughout generations. So, and then there was more specifically also kind of this dedication to the seasons, being like summer, being dedicated to teaching, receiving teachings. That was when the teachings were. Right. Okay. So of course this didn't apply for the people who went into 3-year retreat. Like the people who went into 3-year retreat would stay in retreat for 3 years. But then those who were not in retreat, then during the summer there would be teachings. So they would receive teachings. And then in the winter would be dedicated to practice. So that would be the time when everyone would sort of take what they had learned from the teachings and they would go into retreat and they would practice. understand my notes here. Denidi jela garesung. Nye chu lapna gyawa rang nyam sunyung degasa.
어디다 인보
Sigme.
배는 이 텐송공 그 가르송 요래세나 되네 강송바데 상제송비 예수
Oh yeah, okay.
되네 대가 나이데 송샤와데 냠술랑네 코라나 냠용토네 냠수 마뇽바 되네 대가 직 책강로 고들이 가야메 송도와
So Lord Jigten Sungwan also says, or has said, it really makes the point that the way that his teachings follow the words of the Buddha, the teachings of the Buddha, that's kind of his source material, if you will. So there's that and his understanding from direct practice, that which he has understood directly through practice. And he says that apart from that, there's nothing that among, his teachings that is just kind of superfluous or unbased, that is unbased, that everything is backed by either direct experience and or the words of the Buddha.
어다 대가 나기다 abstract cultural relation 되니다 Drupon 로와 가서 빠충 좀 보지 되네 당보 코랑 단 리공티도 좀 또사버리 이나양 코랑 당보 코랑 지구 소용 되네 디강라 코 드바치네 다 되네치네 다 단나 리공까지 유세야 돼요 고 드주기 때문에 되네 다리오레스
And of course, there was so the Drikung Kagyu really flourished for many centuries, and then, of course, you have in modern history with the Cultural Revolution, in which all of the monasteries were destroyed and so forth. And then after the Cultural Revolution, then the Drikung Kagyu, sort of slowly came back by rebuilding Drikung Til in central Tibet, didn't he?
다 드주기 때문에 소요레스
And then they practice the tradition of the practice lineage started up again.
다 대가 나기게 다 다당가서 무스 통대와 되네 배나당가서 자벨라마 되네 능정공 다 코랑 되네 다 녀모드브다 다 라달리오로 라다 드브다 존네 드브달 효요레 스케치모 칸디스 임바 되네 대가 나기게 다 탑지고 마임바 되네 배나다 초지들이 레네지지 그 잠공차도 요 이나요 초현지데 냠랜 자동지네 되네 말라레 바베나 랍치라 되네 되네 다 나와초 스탠디효 야 디젤은 나와초 스탠디효네 배나 다 가르세로 고차콩도 어트리나 효고요레
Su Chambenumishe?
야
Uh-huh.
대가 나이다 단단원이지 문로제 지신이다 로선주는 효요로 디인도다 나중원에 가르 총부요래와 사모당고야 가르친다 개침부 임바지 다 텔레 라스티 지야 매와지 다 나주 하고고요래스 디인도 텔레된다 나주게지 트리어 프로그램 해야지 어다 디고 대가 스티당 나주다 주체야요래 주체가 되고 가시 티티리 콜로 당다와당 고조야 매줘요래 되네 지가당 땡조당 다 튀겨요래 디네 양가주다 스피스픽 트리어 프로그램 해야 냠내쳐야돼 빼면서 내가 전부다 아주 느리게 냠내쳐야 요 고갑대 빼요 그래서
And so also, right now during our present time, our root guru, the root lama, the head of our lineage, Drikung Kyabgen Chetsang Rinpoche, he, also being so pivotal to, the preservation and the building up again since the Cultural Revolution of, the activities of the lineage, providing, the opportunity for study and practice to continue. And he himself, as an example, of really embodying the qualities of the practice lineage. When he was younger, he did, when he was young, he did his 3-year retreat in Ladakh, and then
Lama Yuru.
at Lama Yuru, the very oldest monastery there in Ladakh, and very important monastery of our lineage, and he also, throughout his life, spent a lot of time meditating in Lapchi, which is one of the most profound, holy sites, and the place where Milarepa practiced, during his lifetime for a good, for many, many years. And His Holiness has, did periods of 6 months of retreat there. And now in his 80s, he is, having just turned 80, he has just entered into 3-year retreat again. So he's now in the midst of a 3-year retreat in Bhutan. And this is really profound. It sort of speaks to the importance of not just this lineage being the practice lineage, but the importance of the 3-year retreat curriculum, which has been, considered the heart of our practice, since the time of Jigten Sumgun, to the present. So this is why, when we talk about the 3-year program that we're doing, it's not random. It's not sort of random dharma. It's really specific to what is traditionally thought to be, the most effective course of practice in, for within our lineage. So if, Drupon Rinpoche was saying, of course, there's general Dharma teachings, and we could, there's so much to teach, within like the extraordinarily kind of vast collections of teachings within the Buddha Dharma. You could spend months, years going through, really focusing on any number of different teachings, found throughout, from, the collections of, great masters from India or Tibet, and also within the sutras and tantras and their commentaries, but this specific 3-year program, among those, this particular curriculum of this 3-year program is really significant, and really he feels most important, really to focus on. And it's important to understand like where this comes from, the kind of the lineage that is behind it.
Next weekend la ta nga chu jamru chamde yare in da ti gang thangi nga chu da ti jetang da chu theba de la number som ji yor te hugo samson himbi na da nga tu su mendo tene ina ko chamde du da hyochogro tene tene tanda tene re tene ti to la chana so common cautions you know degrees.
Okay. So this in general, also for the practitioners of or participants of the 3-year program, we have the next week we'll have the refuge retreat. So Saturday and Sunday we'll be doing the refuge retreat, and today actually Drupon Rinpoche was saying he was planning to talk more about the role of cultivating faith in the practice of refuge, but since we have now, we're close to, out of time. So instead he will talk about like the importance of the role of faith, and in particular the 3 types of faith, also during our refuge retreat next weekend. So for the rest of our time, also, if anyone has any questions, we can open, we can open the floor to discussion or questions if you have any. And just for those of you who are maybe new, just to let you know, we have this, we pass the mic around because we also have this group of people attending on Zoom. So please, if you have a question in the room, please use the microphone so the people on Zoom can also hear your question.
There's no questions on Zoom right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Could I ask a question?
Of course.
During the meditations on karma, one connection that arose, and I'd be curious your thoughts about working with this. As I thought about things in my own life that bring me a sense of fear or anxiety, a sense of, an action that I might have done in the past that might have unfavorable consequences for me. Mm-hmm. When I consider that action, and the fear or aversion that arises, it's connected to a sense of personal feeling like I will receive harm from that. And that's a very limited view. However, as I was meditating with the understanding of karma, cause and effect, that any action, any circumstances that arise, favorable or unfavorable, are due to karmic conditions, some of which are very immediately linked to actions, and some that I might not have any sense of how they're linked. But this feeling of kind of not linking the fear to like being afraid of my own personal circumstances I don't like occurring, but linking that fear to the fear of the fear of performing actions that would produce consequences that would be a ripening of the unwholesome actions. That seemed to be a different perspective that I felt helped me connect more directly with the relationship to karma, cause and effect. And I'm curious if first of all, if this makes sense as an explanation, but yeah, if you have anything you could say on that, like how to maybe shift away from, or how we can more, just maybe directing.
Alana,
Does that?
I feel a little bit unclear about the difference between the two because they almost sounded the same to me. So can you, it sounds like there's like one way that you were relating with this contemplation on karma, cause and effect that felt somehow less limited than I understood fear with regard to how the outcome would affect you and the suffering maybe you might feel from the outcome. But I didn't understand how you explained the alternative to that.
Yes. Thanks, Virginia. So the alternative, when I noticed like that the fear was very self-centered, and then the perspective of, well, any conditions that arise, favorable or unfavorable, are due to karma. And if that's the case, then
Like almost how to make better decisions.
maybe, but I think the difference between I'm sorry, maybe I just need to think about this a little more and how I would ask this as a question. So
Yeah, like I'm almost, I think what you're trying to say is having a relationship to to karma and a caution around karma that is not just limited to fear about the outcome, but that is for oneself. Is that right? Like more of a kind of like vast.
yes, I think that just the root of this is I'm really trying to make karma, cause and effect personal. And I was, you know, yeah, just how to make it really feel more personal and connect that on a more visceral level.
Okay. Tene de te saha goya kapora. Yene yangongi pena de
서로가 약보요와다 매
lejum de la de dordupa pena yang de lejum de dangbo de yang pena o denda de yang ngoma yang de dukcha che ba yana de shinang dawo yare nga la dukcha yongere de debula tene dene shinang dawo langere wa yene yang de nune chene de sim chung chung dawo pena the tegmen gi dawo de kunong yem denda la yo marawa yene yang de pache denda la gi yorwa yene yang tene de je la gande zumba yamba shira hako me yene yang sowo data gare la yore sena the lejum de nune denda de pena the idea chikpo yemba dawo nune denda de wrong sorgio panangshin
레베스
mare cheya ki chidu gande cheko kare.
다 데려와 탐보데 가르잠노 땅고레 휴비나 다 가서 가르세당 가서 크로와라고도 와. 단 디나라 코 제야 그 리즌 카리나 가서 미스테이크 틱 요레 있어와. 이내야다 디게 텐디즘노 마탕와 코 가르세나 이내양 디나라 테레드네 코라미나 냥데미 송도 와. 디인도 당 가서디 가르자모 냠 미스테이크 치 요나 티 미스테이크 두보레 사마 차블라 당가 코캅 야보라 송스러와 당예디 코파기디 마모발라 치기메 파기게 미스테이크 치게 디파트소 장야 도스 게와드로나 디파 창거와 디니 다 디가 코캅레 somebody다 코 제탄테 가서다 윤덴게 precious human life 세야지도와 땡가서 reason 테러와 디인디 코캅 opportunity somtan고 마 동행에 mistake 지송송 때 somtan고 말해서 계승에만 mistake 치 animal to mistake 치기리 in animal to 저게고 디과장 토고요 말와 디나 코캅면도 와 이는 가서다 human being 코캅 요와데 하고 그래서
So, Elena, forgive me if this doesn't address what you were getting at, and then you can maybe ask later. But so he said, first of all, if it weren't for the suffering of samsara, there would be no opportunity for nirvana. There would be no, it is because of samsara that we have nirvana, that we have liberation and awakening. So if we don't think about it, or if we don't, do the practice which causes us to create the conditions for awakening, then there's never any end, to the cycle. And so a big part of the practice is recognizing our mistakes. seeing the mistakes, feeling remorse, and like knowing that there is a path forward that is wholesome and in the direction of awakening. But instead of seeing the mistakes and feeling fear or feeling judgment towards ourselves or feeling like a lot of guilt, instead we can, in seeing the mistakes, feel like happy that now we have an opportunity. So the result of seeing the mistakes, instead of becoming, a kind of guilt-ridden experience, becomes then kind of this is opportunity. Now I have the opportunity. In the future, I am not going to make the same mistakes. And so seeing the mistakes becomes the cause, seeing the non-virtue, seeing the negativity becomes the cause to move in the direction of awakening, to move in the direction of the wholesome, to gather more and more wholesome seeds, causes. And so this is a big part of why we contemplate precious human life. So he says, really training ourselves to see the opportunity that arises automatically and recognizing our mistakes. To see it as not so much a mistake and dwell in the badness of the mistake, but to see the mistake and in seeing that becomes opportunity. So to put the emphasis on opportunity, because, for instance, animals also...
The opportunity to purify, opportunity to achieve liberation.
Mm-hmm. And he said, their animals make mistakes all the time, right? They engage in non-virtue, right? But they don't have the same opportunity that we have to recognize the non-virtue as non-virtue and to intentionally start to cultivate the tendency to go in the other direction, or to cultivate the wholesome, to cultivate virtue. And so this is why it's so precious to be born as a human being.
John Allen has a question.
Okay.
Unmute yourself, yeah.
Hi, Drupon. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So yeah, about loneliness, I feel like I've always been a lonely person. I've always been lonely. I've never done well in groups, like group dynamics, and even in companionship and in partnership, I've always felt alone, lonely, still lonely. And I've read that there are like Buddhas who get annoyed by other Buddhas, like Pratyeka Buddhas.
Did you say get annoyed by other Buddhas?
Yeah, like Pratyeka Buddhas, like solitary realizers, There are like lone Buddhas in Buddhism who, my understanding is they achieve, as I understand, my limited understanding is they achieve enlightenment through their own efforts.
Mm-hmm.
Like typically at a time when there are no teachings or from a Samyak Sambuddha are available, right? So like I understand like the distinction is they're not like a fully enlightened Buddha who teaches others or establishes a community or practices the Dharma, or they don't create a lineage or anything like that. They're usually depicted as ascetics, like lone wolves, like they symbolizing like enlightenment through personal endeavor, renunciation, and like singular focus
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of thing, and solitude. Like and like there's an American transcendentalist philosopher named Ralph Waldo Emerson who said, "There is no companion as companionable as solitude." And I think about that a lot, because of my own loneliness. And I understand there's some, I think at least some reverence for this Pratyeka Buddha concept. in the traditions.
But I am hardcore. Oh, okay. Drupon thinks he understands. I didn't hear the question in it. I just didn't. Yeah, but.
What?
Yeah, I mean, like the viability of this as a path.
Okay. Dini de rang sanje yorwa dini dampo chi. Oh, okay. He understands.
Re tati nge tanga loneliness lao yorwa. In a loneliness nga ta negative side do be the loneliness cha ne. Tene ji rang ji bun ro cha tele de ne tene ta be na cha cha na nyong ba ro loneliness do be na kong ro do tene ta khari na yang semten do tindi be hyu chimbo la ne ko la ya le la wo yores ko loneliness in bi jim sentel de ne. Bena loneliness mena ko nyom ba ina distraction yuna ko nyom ba straight nyom ba cha to marwa bena hedan ra wana hedan straight cha to yo mari yine ko loneliness ina ta ko hedan ro ji la ta ji so no ta de na tene ko hedan to chere ro gro tindi ta nge ko this one side ko negative side la use yine ya chon la ba na gires bena nga chon sam de du tan kontu ba chamba yore 닝제 요리는 코로나랑 코로나마도 엄마지를 리액션 지네 계절라베 요 말에 뭐통야 요 말와 한테 팬도 요레스 대가 나기 랑상진도 오이나 다 랑상지 코로나 지부 리툰데는 곰잡네 힘나 남지네 고 코로나 상진도 하더니 티미치 발라더니 코로나 타고 지 곰잡이 기 줌센텔에 되네 로와 살트리 힘비 줌센텔에 되네 코로나 되네 코로나 소 리라이즈 차기도 가르가리 냠네 지부요와 소구요와
De rang sanje na.
어때 거때 야부 초레스. 데이터 거티 인자 용 그랬어.
So he said there are kind of two sides to loneliness. So like he said that what he was kind of focusing on was the negative side of loneliness, where because of a sense of separation and loneliness, then there is that it's this loneliness is both caused by and then also possibly increases afflicted mind states, affliction. So as one feels a sense of loneliness and isolation, which is a product of afflicted mind states, and then in that loneliness and isolation, then the afflicted mind states grow, they increase, whether anxiety or anger or aggression, whatever. Because and the problem with that is that it's kind of becomes like a self-perpetuating thing, so that because affliction can't straighten out affliction, so anger can't transform anger. It just makes more anger. So, but on the other hand, when you speak
so that time I said loneliness is, so there's always like a good distraction or bad distraction,
Distraction?
Yeah. So, like for example, like angry, right? So angry, so if you're not lonely, even though you are angry, but some companions or some like people, then the distraction for the anger.
Like a positive distraction. So if you're lonely, if you are in
not lonely.
If you're not lonely.
Yeah, not lonely.
Okay.
There is your anger has distraction.
Don't understand.
You're around people. Okay.
Right. I mean, but then okay, yeah. Distraction. What I understood that he was saying is that if you're lonely and you have anger, for instance, or, some really negative mind state, and you continue to be alone, your anger is just going to get stronger and
because no
stronger
distraction.
because you have no distraction from it. You're like essentially meditating on your anger and making it grow. So on the other hand, in that situation, if you're lonely, it becomes a beneficial distraction to be around people because it will distract you from your anger.
Right, yes. What that positive side what you
So that's a positive side of that.
positive side
No, that's a negative kind of loneliness. So on the other hand, there is loneliness that is very positive and beneficial to the practice. And a loneliness, that and of course the role of disenchantment with samsara. And if, for instance, one retreats into solitude and this becomes a condition that allows for positive qualities to grow, if there's love and compassion in the heart and the positive qualities are growing in that condition of solitude, then it is very much a positive thing. And of course, for the example of Pratyeka Buddhas, before that he said, this is why, for instance, many people do need to practice and retreat to really develop the qualities because as long as we're wrapped up in engaging with people and there's, all of the attachment and aversion that arises in the conditions of being around people and the various issues that kind of are created by that circumstance, then one needs to withdraw from that and be in solitude to be able to...
right, so this, your practice, love, compassion, whatever, generation stage or completion stage, is this whatever lonely or solitude is better because there's no distraction. So very difficult to practice with people, love or compassion, whatever you practice, and a lot of around the people, there are a lot of distractions for the practice. So solitude is good.
And he said, that for solitary realizers who don't, essentially solitary realizers or Pratyeka Buddhas don't rely on the guidance of a teacher. They discover from their own meditation, they awaken, to the true nature of phenomena through self-discovery that comes through their own practice, and that would be obviously a good kind of loneliness, relative. I mean, that maybe not in this context, but that's what he said. That is considered noble.
Yeah, because
Thank you.
sort of both ways, so.
Thank you. That really was a very helpful answer.
Chubala, like when I making friends, I can see they are doing something not good for their health, for their future, not making good karma. But other than I pray for them, I see them as a mirror to make a better myself. What can I do to help them making a little bit better karma for their future? Of course, I consider everyone is Buddha in life, in my life. But still, I feel guilty, not good. I feel bad if I couldn't do a little bit help to them.
Yeah, people who have problems or who are suffering in their life, you mean?
Their behavior.
Behaving badly.
Their behavior, their thoughts, and they are making worse karma for their future, for their life. Thank you.
Okay.
Tini di penabo tokbo tomo ngoshepa mampo kongso yang tenda di chupa nyemba lega ducha yoba mampo tongioroa. Tini kongso rang la rang tenda le nyemba zogioroa. Tini kongso yang ge chidu monlam gyagio. Tini yang kongso pena yang tenda de pena semjin tamche nune sanje yambala dushi che tukiore yene yang samsam na pena mi ditsu drawo yang tenda de ropa che matuba there's a sorwa kyo yoro sem kyo yoro wa de ropa che matuba deni yang gande che ko sare tenda yena gain sena kongsola yang tenda de gayan gero che yumara wa ropa che
이게 다 전화라 번나기리스 모놈자가 베케 첨보리스 고수나올레라 팽기리스.
So as you mentioned that you pray for them, you know, this is really beneficial. Like sooner or later, the power of your prayers will benefit them.
이나양 of course 다다다 레라고요 말이스. 심야 통치야라 되니 고 참상놓고 가서 hopeless 도된디다 용구요를 쓰는 양보다 텔레코 discourage 노치아요서 말이스.
And you know, however, of course, it's not easy, and in some cases, you know, we find, you know, it's a hopeless situation, like there's nothing to be done, and that can be very upsetting. But we have to not become discouraged by that.
I have a quick question about the text. On the question on the page 20 with the praise, it starts with Vajradhara, but then it goes from within the unborn state of great compassion. The top of lotus and sun is Jikji and Ditsuma. I mean, I looked it up and it's Jamataka.
No. Drupon specifically wants me to use the Tibetan terms for those. The Jikji Dang Ditsuma Sure.
Right. That the really the monarchy jigida to so much hindu.
Re Dang Sure la window tini mo de sigzo la ta yorwa tini yang shinji chido.
이나다디 jigida tun센데 ngazo pecha den가 하고 res poegla.
Yene yang Sure la.
No, that tambotela.
Okay. So he's reiterating what I just said, which is that we have to put in the Tibetan text, or in the text, the translation of the text, the Tibetan names for those. Jigje and
Dati tonda karsena ngazo de real meaning karlaguore lavina tene chadalis.
Because the real meaning is attachment and aversion. One is attachment, one is aversion.
Oh, that they could subduing chigoro.
And so that is, you know, the deity is subduing those. We are subduing those.
So it's not taking the place of Chakasambhara, because I don't see Chakasambhara mentioned here. We go to Vajravarahi.
It is mentioned, but the language, I think it is not identifiable because of how the name, it doesn't say Chakasambhara, it says like
Great Wrathful One.
Yes.
That's
이내양다 ngazo
easily confused.
인치간 요나 this 책 language somodana then problem use grace.
So sometimes this is confusing. Like, so if we translate the terms, in this case, if we translate them into Sanskrit, it can create a big misunderstanding. Then the problem misunderstanding. The NGK Gyurna, but really the not so
Sanskrit gantini dana kote problem like this.
It creates a problem.
So other lineages, you know. So.
For other lineages, like, because it can be seen, I'm just going to say it like it is, can be interpreted as disrespectful because these are deities or gods in like Hindu context, right? Yeah. So he feels that it is, you know, he actually, when we were discussing, he said, imagine like as a Buddhist, if there's that kind of terminology, like, you know, and there's our deities are like under the feet of another deity. So he says, you know, actually because the meaning is attachment and aversion, you know, and it's symbolic, like to avoid the language that would really be offensive to someone.
Good question.
So it's, yeah.
Okay, so no question,
Hello?
maybe. Yes.
Drupon, can you, karma means action. So can you please talk to us about how karma is not about punishment or reward or payback or tit for tat? It is like if somebody is creating a negative circumstance within a family, that's their karma to resolve. It's not everybody in the family's karma to resolve. Like, let's say I have a friend and they're causing me issues. That's their karma to resolve. It's not mine. And it's not about, like I said, punishment and reward system and necessarily suffering. The word means action. Thank you.
Dini le di nune le gi dunda Jawa rawa Jawa action. Jawa. Yeah, dini yang kashe gi pena di karma kona dini yang dina di pena kai buke la gane la kona chi kayang ko masong he. Di pena chirang dukcha cheba yina dini chirang dukcha yongere dawo dina di tesa dina samo tangso dini pena dini yang dina pinsu na troba gyatu chirangi le di chirang la yang dukcha zogere dawo lao gerawa dini dinda dawo la yomare yini yang di dinda di re dini di nune le dinda dawo re mendo gikorla pena yang dinda di punishment dawo mayimba Tes labna?
Reda le te jatang le se ya di koda samji me chawa re serwa.
So first of all, to like karma is inconceivable.
Yina yang ta nga so general karma song karma se ya de la te jorwa tang ya yu ba.
But what we have to be able to see karma as changeable, as it's something that's fluid, really.
대가 나이다 그 karma negative karma positive karma yorwa. There negative karma 로이나 장야 요와. negative karma 장비나 상제 공부 토야 요와.
And there's positive karma and negative karma. But negative karma can be purified, and the result of purifying negative karma is awakening, is Buddhahood.
단기 공투가 가서 담보네 라우라 샘라와. 근데 샘 주초 당야 돼. 저와다 리 장아들이 도도지 양 거야. 요 말이스.
고마송.
베나레 장아들이 이제 도도로지 파킨도야 요 말이스.
So and yet
또 가서는 다 샘리 도와. controlsana tene negative rowa ina yata na controlang me sambatela ko thi ki jumsentel dene ko tangi ki controlang de changro yores
and yet like when we speak of purifying karma, it's not like there's some substantial thing that we take away from that there's some it's not like we get some like solid thing, called positive karma that we build up. But it is more, it's in an internal process of working with the mind, and that when, every time anger arises, that we practice recognizing that anger, recognizing the fault of the anger, and choosing not to follow the anger, but to cultivate a positive mind state instead in the place of anger, and then gradually the propensity of that positive karma gets stronger and more kind of automatic, and that is more what the process of cultivating positive karma and purification looks like.
Thank you, Drupon. I have a feeling that maybe that's true on the relative level, but on the absolute truth level, it might be a little different. So I'm just saying what comes to my mind. I apologize. I don't mean any disrespect.
Right, that's very good. Yes, right.
No more questions.
Okay. So now dedication.
Okay. Thank you, Drupon. Turn to page 24. by the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Drupon Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. And then to page 19. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is unborn, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. Changchu Sencho Rinpoche Make
Thank you.
So I have a couple of announcements. So this coming weekend, as we mentioned, is the retreat, the Refuge Retreat. So from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and then from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. So we have a request, which is that instead of printing off a bunch of copies and not knowing how many people will be attending, if you are in the 3-year program, and I will also send out an email with, it's pretty much the same as the last one that you had. There's maybe one tiny typo that's corrected in the one I will send out. But if you already have a printed copy, please bring your printed copy. If you want a printed copy, please print out your printed copy, or print out a copy for yourself, or you could also have it on a device. So if you want it on an iPad or a computer or even a phone, you can use it that way. And we'll also be screen sharing. So technically the text is supposed to be, there's been some misunderstanding about this, and sometimes it's been expected or shared in some of the WhatsApp group text, but it's really meant for the people who are committed to the 3-year program. That's one of the perks of signing up as a monthly donor, like subscribing to the 3-year program, is that you get all the materials, for the 3-year program. Everyone is welcome to attend the teachings, but if you expect to have, all of the benefits of the full package program, then it's advisable that you sign up for, as a 3-year program participant. And you can do that by becoming a monthly donor, which makes you signed on for the full 3 years. You get everything for the full 3-year program. So anyway, that's the text. Please bring your own text for the retreat. And then also just to let you know that
the text is, sometimes we print too much, but we always see something fixed, right?
Yeah, so it's always a work in progress. So that's also why we don't want to make 1 million copies and then have copies that are useless in the future. And then we also, because Drupon Rinpoche feels that there's more he wants to go into with Refuge, we'll continue with Sunday teachings after the retreat next weekend. So he will be teaching for 2 more Sundays on Refuge, and then we're going to have a break because it's over the holidays. So there will be a break period And there will be other activities happening on Sundays during that break period, and we'll also send out announcements about that. But the idea is, over the holidays, if you want to catch up on retreat time, if you want to do your own refuge retreat days, or maybe you still have retreat days to catch up on personally from the Four Thoughts, and that's maybe a good time to do that. So that's why we're taking a break and allowing some time for people to do their retreat days. And then also wanted to announce that we will have a Christmas Eve potluck on Christmas Eve. So that's December 24th at 1 p.m. and we'll send out more information about that. And then also the Shamatha New Year retreat, which will be on New Year's Day, and it will be just like a full day of silent meditation with also some instruction from Rinpoche. And then we also have winter retreat, which is January 23rd to February 1st. So those are just some things to keep in mind in terms of scheduling. So thank you, everyone.
All right, so this, I think, more important part is we, after the 2 weekends, the refuge teachings, then there's one we specific confirm chancho mo shesona nga mo mongbo sanga mo hegedo da dila then end of year then chancho ji chigres.
Okay. So as I mentioned, that we'll have during the break from the 3-year program teachings on Sundays, the first Sunday after the break will be Drupon Rinpoche will do a jangcho, which is like a ceremony that is to benefit the deceased. So it's particularly connected with Amitabha. And he said it's important time to do this, like at the end of the year. A lot of people, we all collectively know a lot of people who passed away this year. And so it's he thought it would be really beneficial to have a full day dedicated to this. So he'll be doing the ritual. It'll be like a 10 to 12 p.m. and then 2 to 5 p.m. full day of practice. So please attend that if you have the time, and also we'll send out more details about it shortly.
All right,
and also please bring to Pariyam Kirna Pinto to it. Okay. And so if there are particular people that you would like to include that have people, loved ones, or people who have passed away, please bring their name written out, and then that can be the names are burned during the Jangcho. I asked if you should bring a picture. He said you can bring a picture. The picture is not burned, it's just the names.
Okay.